Hello. He may be disappointed with my talk in the direction that it's going to go, but we'll see. All right, I'm a hands guy, so just real quick, raise your hand if you've heard the term customer service. Everybody should raise their hand, everybody. Okay. Now, the real question is do you know what customer service means? Or do you know what the components of customer service is? When we think of customer service, typically we think of this: smiling, happy customers walking out of a cafe or any industry for that matter, happy with the service that they got. But in reality, for the last 20 years, we've talked a lot about customer service. But we really, in the developing world, we really haven't looked at the components of customer service. The two beings, the entities that are involved in that, customer and the service personnel. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the history of not only the modern world or Western world, but also the developing world and where we are with customer service. To do that, there we go. To do that, we have to look at why this subject is important. First of all, 96% of new jobs in the world are going to be in the customer service industry, meaning almost everybody in here is going to have family members or relatives that are going to be working in customer service. So this is a very important topic. To understand my journey in this topic, we're going to start with a year ago. A year ago, I moved my family here to Yerevan, Armenia, permanently. And I was here. I was hired to take over a chain of restaurants here and cafes here in Armenia and really bring Western concepts. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be easy. I'm from the West. You know, we know all about customer service. We're going to really knock this out. So what I really found was I was wrong. There was a big piece of that puzzle that was missing. And this is where it all begins. Every morning I took the metro. That's a picture of the metro right there, Yerevan Metro, to work every morning. And that picture was probably taken yesterday, but looks the same as 20 years ago. And so do the people in there. So I would walk up to the counter, put my 100 drams, bought a dress, and the lady would look at me, and they were angry. They looked like they hated their life, they hated their job, they hated me, and they threw the orange token, and I walked off. So I decided to play a little game, which ended up being a month-long case study. Every morning when I walked up as an American, bought a dress, you know, and the lady looked at me shocked and gave me my token, and she looks over at security, and I thought to myself, man, I'm really in trouble. Now they're probably going to call security. I look suspicious, but I did this. I did this day in, day out, and after a couple weeks, I noticed some change. The ladies started greeting me. They started saying bye to us. And after an entire month, I actually got a little bit of a smile. Now, most people would say, well, what does this have to do with customer service? It has everything to do with customer service. It's about building relationships and how important it is as a customer to be a part of that relationship process. So to understand a little bit about where the West is in customer service, we have to look at the economic history of the West. And then I'm going to tie you into where we are in Armenia and in the developing world. First of all, we had the Industrial Revolution. Went from 1750 to 1850. This is when new practices were being implemented in the machinery, in the production line, really making things faster and getting things faster to the customer. Then we have the Second Industrial Revolution, which this is where things got really fast. This is actually when Henry Ford got involved and started producing cars. We all know the Ford company. And then we have what's called the Service Revolution, early 1900s. This was also defined by Henry Ford. And what Henry Ford decided was, if we're going to create a product, why not service it? Why not actually give customers the opportunity to bring it back and we'll fix it? And this was very revolutionary. And then finally, we have what's called the Customer Service Revolution. And this is coming from all the way from the 1980s all the way up to present. But mind you, this is happening only in the West. And I'm going to define why that's happening only in the West. This is where you have HR departments. This is where you have customer service training. You have restaurants doing mass training, teaching people how to react with their customers and everything else. So to understand why this isn't happening here in the developing world, we need to take a little history lesson. And to do that, let's look at Armenia. And to look at Armenia, I read this book, or we have this book of travelers talking about the Armenians throughout the Ottoman Empire. And it goes into the early history of the Ottoman Empire, and it talks about Armenians being warm, being welcoming, being service-oriented, being nannies, being owning cafes and restaurants. And then as time went on, the words and the descriptive language from the travelers started to change. Terms such as cunning, such as intelligent, such as manipulative. Now that's not a positive word. Such as tax evasion, such as, and we have to understand that this was happening during a period in the Ottoman Empire when heavy taxes were placed upon people of different ethnicities and different religions. So the Armenians and the other minorities started moving away from the service industry, started putting more emphasis on other things. Then the descriptive languages started talking about merchants, traders, businessmen, doctors, lawyers, more educated, more higher level things that were putting families away from the service industry. So we get to modern day, and things haven't changed much. Armenia went through a dark period, and so did most of the Caucasus with the Soviet Union, and then the collapse of the Soviet Union. And basically what we have now is the same mentality. This mentality that the service industry is below us. That it's better to get an education. That work while you're doing education or before you're doing education is below you. And families start talking about all these three things here. You have a service industry with skilled labor that lacks proper customer service training. You've got a customer base that looks down on individuals, okay? And this takes a toll on the development of nations. Now we look at the West. What does the West have? Well, the West has relationship-based customer service. This means the customer respects the service attendant just as much as the service attendant is supposed to respect the customer. You have a mutual respect, okay? This means both know that they're all going in the same direction, that nobody's below or above or at any other level. And then you have, obviously, the customer is king. Well, this is easy to treat the customer as king when you feel respected as a service attendant, okay? So, the principle that we're taught in the West, that many CEOs are now training their employees on, and this is going to make a lot of people mad here, is called the waiter rule. And the simple thesis of the waiter rule is, if a person is nice to you, but they're not nice to their waiter, they're not a nice person. Now think about it. You have all sat alongside of someone who treats their service personnel bad here. You've all felt it. Because they have been taught by their society, by their families, that being in the service industry is below them, that their kids are too good for it, that they're not, that they cannot treat that person with the same respect. Now, it sounds a little harsh, but it's true. So, to understand a little bit why there's so much importance put on the service industry and why there's so much importance in work, let's take a look at some service industry standouts. We've got Charles Agemian. He's former CEO of Chase Manhattan Bank. What people don't know about him is that he worked in the stock room in the service department of Chase Manhattan all the way up to the top. So he didn't go get a great education and then go become a manager. He worked before he finished his education. He raised himself up through the rings of the ladder. Then you have Richard Davud-Donchian. He invented modern futures. What most people don't know about him is he worked as an assistant at a carpet store, and along the way, many other service jobs. And all the time, I'm sure his parents were telling him, why are you doing this? It's below you. You're never going to get anything if you're working in a carpet store. Well, he showed them. Obviously, we all know this guy, Kirk Kerkorian. He's an entrepreneur, but he also worked selling and installing heater units before he ever became a multimillionaire. Obviously, Warren Buffett, grocery store attendant, and many others. And I placed a bunch of men here, but there's also women. I want to point that out. Very important. Okay. Now, why is this all so important? Okay. Why is this important? Because we have three things that we need to talk to. There's a million ways to fix all this. There's a million ways to make you a better customer. But I'm going to talk about three different periods. I'm going to talk about, first of all, businesses. Businesses. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, Start treating your people like they're your family, that they're not below you, that they're a part of what you do. They're a part of your income generation, and they will in turn treat the customer with that same relationship. Then, most importantly, I want to talk to families. I'm not here to change Armenians or Armenian families, but we are in a different modern era. We are in a modern era where success takes a different quotient. Now, I'm going to do the hand thing again. If I were to tell you that your son or daughter has a 90% chance of financial success that they listen to me right now, would you let them listen to me? Just raise your hand. Most people should raise their hand. It's a factual thing that 90% of people that work before and during college move on to financial success. 9 out of 10. So knowing that, would you still tell your child that they're too good to be a waiter or a waitress? Would you still tell your child that they can't do that because they need to be concentrating on their education? You know, my wife is a PhD student at Cambridge. She's probably going to get in trouble for this. Her father still doesn't know. She's a PhD student at Cambridge. While she was doing her master's degree for a year in London, she worked as a waitress. And to this day, she's afraid to tell her father. But she will tell you that that 1 year of experience was better or more important in the social atmosphere than any of her college degrees. It's pretty powerful. And then let's talk to individuals. Guys, if there's one thing I want you to walk away with today is remember that speech by Dave Bequette, whether you believe it or not, and go into your next restaurant or cafe, remember the waiter rule, and treat everybody with respect. Try it. Fake it if you don't even feel like it. If it's so ingrained in you that you can't get it out of you, if you can't look at that waiter and go, I respect you, then at least fake it, you know? All right, guys. Thank you so much.